let's just jump in. So I'm going to jump into a topic that's very top of mind for many of our listeners who are entering, currently in, or are a few years out of college. Student loans.
So, oh no.
Oh, it's fun. Like this is a happy, positive podcast. Fun thing to always talk about. But so the three of us, we all took the plunge into student debt to attend top institutions. So there's a lot of similarities there. But where the similarities stop is that neither of us were interviewed and the face of a Wall Street Journal article talking about the seriousness and the thoughts and what goes into the student loan process. But also, like, for the record, because we're going to talk about all the awesome things you've been doing, what leads you to this moment, what you're up to now, who made you. The student loans, they don't define us. They don't define you. But they do fundamentally affect how we move through this career and how we move through life.
Right. A little bit.
Yeah. Just fundamentally or financially or physically, all the above. But you recently, just a few weeks ago, you were featured in the Wall Street Journal in an article titled "Financially Hobbled for Life: The Elite Master's Degrees That Don't Pay Off." So first off, are you okay? Are you okay? Be the focus of this.
Yeah, no, I'm doing all right. It was funny. The timing of that article couldn't have been worse because I was away with family in Ocean City, Maryland on vacation, just at the beach, this is the thing we do every year, big, loud weekend, a lot of just drinking and hanging out and seeing family and stuff. Had no clue when the article was coming out, had no idea what part of it I was going to be. I just knew that they took a couple pictures of me and interviewed me for a little bit. And then in the middle of the 4th of July, I was on the beach and the article, or the 5th or whatever day it was, and the article drops. And then it's just this vacation's over now. Cause now I spent the next 3 days just going through all the social media posts and having to engage with it and all that stuff. So yeah, I think since then I've recovered a bit. But no, I'm doing all right.
Oh, that's so interesting, because I don't know what that's like, dude. On such a big platform and having having social media react,
right?
That must be so interesting.
And you'd be surprised because they reacted at the stuff that I didn't think they'd react at.
Can you give some examples?
Yeah, I was expecting either oh my, what a. This is a problem. Oh my God, look at these students. This cost of education in this country is a huge, generation defining issue. No, they were oh, that guy sucks. I hate this person because of this. And even now, I'm still the Twitter trolls have found me, and it's just fun. They're just constantly throwing spitballs from the back of the room. And I don't understand where they get the time. Because all they're doing is just oh yeah, look at this guy, he's terrible. And it's just
what is their argument? I'm really curious because I read your article and I was dang, I see myself in this guy. I wasn't thinking that this is so weird. So did they have any justification, or are they just hey?
Well, because you guys are artists, so I think we all get it, right? To a certain extent. And these are people who are who don't work in the arts, who don't understand the financial struggle of being a below the line person in the entertainment industry. And so I think they're just oh, what a dumbass.
Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
God.
I mean, I got a degree in viola, so I'm sure people think the same thing about me.
I mean, but that's awesome though. You could, viola, who plays the viola? That's cool.
Exactly. And so what am I going to do with that? Yeah. But it was my passion. And, I think that's something that they don't understand as well. Guess where you're getting at is when we discover something that lights us up in our soul in a way, that's what we have to do. Right.
There's no other choice. I actually, my way into the arts was music. I started on the tenor saxophone. And then all the way through high school. And then when college came, I was I don't want to be the kid playing a horn in his dorm room. So I taught myself guitar and, But so like music was without a doubt my way in. And then, like you said, once you learn that you want to go in the arts, go into performance, go into entertainment, like whatever that little bug is, like Inception, it's not, that's in there now. That's not,
it's over. Yeah.
It's there to stay. And what was kind of wild is just since I knew you and I was already familiar with your journey, to then suddenly see all sorts of people sharing it across all forms of social media. So I've got all of my arts friends over there with their opinions, their stories really resonating, or critiquing academia, critiquing the system, cancel student loans. And then on the other side, because I have self-loathing, I follow a lot of right-wing stuff just to see like what the crazy's going on, and they're just blowing up the Daily Wire, like everyone just like, let's pile on, let's own the institutions. Also, this guy's an idiot. Also, and like, he hates America or whatever. And it's just like the craziest thing. And I'm like, and your face is attached to all of it. Like, oh my God. It's different when you know the person, to sit there like, how are you reading into this? Like, wow, they've put a face to this issue that's so far beyond.
It's so great because like Ben Shapiro went on a rant about me. Like Mike Rowe, Mike Rowe, the dirty jobs guy, like posted a whole big thing as if like,
I love Mike Rowe. Wait, what?
Yeah. So, and to be fair with him, he's like always had this singular focus about why trade school is important, and like power to him. He does really great work. But it was just funny that like, even the people read in the comments of his post, he like his whole message was like, yeah, like maybe, we need more people going to trade school, and maybe that access is great. He did say we don't need more filmmakers, which I totally disagree with. But even the people in that comment section who like agree with him for the most part were saying like, oh yeah, this kid's an idiot. And I'm like, that's not the point,
I remember watching that. It's also ironic that Mike Rowe is, on a television show. And
right.
He's like,
oh, of course.
We don't need filmmakers. Wait. Where's my lighting? Where's my light? Where's my light person? Like,
yeah, we don't need more podcasts, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there was this other guy on YouTube that like, and I was really flattered by this because he not only like used that terrible photo from the Wall Street Journal as like his thing, but he looked up like my films. He did his research on me and put together this whole like 10-minute like thesis about why I'm an idiot. I like it's like I don't want to like shout out his name and like give him airtime, but
okay. Just, can you tell me off the air, dude?
Yeah.
Like, that makes me angry.
It's kind of hilarious because again, it's like apparently this article angered people in totally the wrong way. That like it fueled this guy to spend 20 hours out of his day to like dig up and like pull clips and edit the thing, and so I can only just laugh at the broader internet reaction.
It's amazing.
It's been funny.
So I'm curious, what in your own words do you think was the takeaway of the article for people that may have not read it or people who may have not even seen the blowout? Like, what was it trying to accomplish?
So I think it had very good intentions. What the article, from my perspective, and I my undergrad is in journalism, and I wrote news for a while, so I get it. I think what they were trying to point out is that you have, and again, we have this macro problem of institutions are charging infinite dollars for tuition. Like tuition just keeps going up, and the government keeps writing blank checks to these schools on the expense of taxpayers. And it's like there's no checks and limits to like the federal student loan process in relation to how much tuition costs in this country. And that's the issue, like that's the core kind of macro story here. And I think, they did a piece, the arts piece came first, and then they put out like a couple weeks later one on like finance or law students. But, we don't judge lawyers when they take out, $300,000 in loans for school. We judge artists when they do, and I think that's where like this sort of missed, perspective is like, that we have these big problems, but I think everyone focused on like, you spent all that to do the arts, you're crazy. But like, I think at the core of the issue, like and that's part of the reason why I wanted to speak up about it, is because I think it is a really important issue. Like I don't know how I'm going to pay that now, like in 2021, but we have an entire generation of students who have the same problem across all fields. So it's not just an art specific thing. This one just just happened to be about like Columbia's film program, as like the specific example to the story, you know?
And they even had that graph in there that just like had like the outlier. It looks it looks like it's Russell Westbrook's like triple double numbers, where just like it's just so far outfield of everyone else's that it's unbelievable. And Columbia Film School. Is there a particular reason why? Is it a 3-year program or
it is a 4 to 5 year program for writer directors?
Why. That's kind of like an unfair thing, because grad programs are 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, and like to be fair, you know, for the producing students are in and out in 3 years. The writer directors are in 4 to 5. But the way they structure it is, just like any other MFA, it's like 2 years of full-time classwork. You know, it's 21 credit semesters, Saturday classes. You're making your stuff, like that's all you do with your life. No time to work a job. But then, whereas other film programs, you're done in those 2 years, and then you kind of have to spend the next couple years out of school making your like calling card piece, like writing your film, making your short, whatever it is. Columbia's, and I loved this part of it. They were like, why don't you do that work as an artist in residency at the school, under like with our resources, with the supervision of, you know, faculty, with workshop environments. And you know, so it's not like it wasn't like full tuition for those years. And it also isn't like like a third year of school. It was like film summer camp at that point. And I was just working on my thing. So the structure was unique, which is kind of what drew me to the program in the first place. But it also cost a bit more, you know, to live in New York City for 4 years as opposed to 2 years.
No, yeah, dude. Jeez.
Oh, preach. I mean, it sounds like because for filmmakers, and it's similar to theater majors and dancers, unlike music, which we have a DMA PhD problem. So we have a whole other extra degree that's messed up. But I know for theater, like what is it, the capstone or whatever, like the ending degree is the MFA. So it sounds like you kind of get this hybridized PhD program, because 2 years, what is a PhD? 2 years of coursework, 2 to 3 years of writing the paper.
Totally. Like it was the amount of work and effort that went into a PhD, but I didn't get the fuzzy robe with the little like floppy hat at the end that you get.
And that's really what's all about.
The floppy hat makes it all worth it, man.
I know. I want nothing more. I just want the floppy hat to just have, you know, oh right, I'm a doctor, you know.
It looks tough, though.
Can anyone save this person? No, but I could film it very well.
I'll make the documentary about this incident.
Yeah.
Trust me, hold on.
In about 16 months. So
editing's going to be pristine. It's going to be Hitchcockian. But oh my God. So there's a bunch of different angles we can take, and they're all really relevant to, like I said, most of our listeners and pretty much almost everyone our age. It's very hard, and it's an extreme rare occurrence nowadays to get out without student debt. And the number is, of course, astronomical. And so just a few years ago to now, there's just been article after article, Vox, The Atlantic. There's opinion pieces about your article and like the Washington Post. Like there's so many, there's so much focus on it because of how huge and astounding it is. It's like is it the biggest debt out there now, or?
I mean, I think it's like, it's going to be the next, like, you know, like when the housing bubble burst in like 2008, you know, I think the next thing, like the next, whatever that was, it's going to be with student loans. So it is a huge problem. And like, I have, you know, I'm not an economist, so I don't know anything about, I'm not going to pretend to like have the answer, you know? But it is a huge issue.
There's a really interesting book, and it's kind of like really timely. It's by Stephanie Kelton. Have you heard of her?
No.
She used to work for the Senate Budget Committee, and she's a former economist and professor in, I think it was either Missouri or Kansas. I think it was University of Missouri.
Okay.
And she's advised many presidents. And she talks about, in this book, it's called The Deficit Myth, and it talks about monetary policy at the federal level. And the one thing that many people don't understand about the federal government as opposed to state governments businesses, everyday households, is that the federal government cannot go broke because it is the issuer and the monopolistic issuer of the currency. Right. If it needs to fund programs, it can print the money to fund the programs, right? Now, the difference here is that doesn't mean you can print forever. Weimar Republic, you have Germany after World War I, Zimbabwe,
right?
Venezuela. You can inflation your currency to zero. And that is the true speed limit. But it's not a question of deficit or balancing a budget, which is what I think a lot of the politicians are doing, because I've thought about this a lot. And this book is bringing a lot together. A lot of what I discovered in this article is like people that fight against the idea of paying off student loans or forgiving student loans is because they view the federal deficit like it's a household budget, but it's not the same thing, because you are educating a populace that is going to be bringing value to the economy overall. And so it's not a net negative investment. So that's kind of like where I'm standing at that position. Have you heard anything about modern monetary theory or MMT or anything like that?
Oh no, okay. I'm a comedy writer, so
it is a comedy though. It's kind of a joke. Yeah. So there's a headline. We're not going to dig too far into the article, but we're looking around at some of these other articles written about this, and it's a question that we can answer ourselves, and it really hits close to home, which is, the headline is elite college worth it? ? Maybe not. And then the line beneath it, the subtitle, wealthy parents who spend heavily to get their kids into top schools aren't giving them as big of an advantage as commonly thought, research shows.
How do you feel about that?
So, I on the one hand, I like, anytime like a parent, I don't know, like there's no reason to be sending your kid to like the best school because that will inherently like equate to the best opportunity. I did my undergrad at Rutgers in State School of New Jersey. It's New Jersey State, and it was the best. And I felt I got most of, if not everything I needed out of it. And also opportunities that I'm getting today are still happening because of connections and the work that I did from like my state school. So, I disagree with the notion that, and I think this was sort of like a bit of an editorial that article took, was like the assumption that we assumed that, by going to Columbia, that brand name is going to be our ticket. On the other hand, though, like, I know if you're going for a specialized degree, for me, it was film, for, like musicians that go to, Juilliard or drop out of Berkeley after 2 years or like whatever. It's like, you go to those good programs because that creates opportunity for you. So I don't think like it's a bad thing to be targeting like a good school that like, it like does well in that field. But I don't think it's like smart to be saying, oh, I want to go to Princeton because Princeton's Princeton. It's like, I want to go to, and I would never want to go to Princeton. I hate that school. But it's just like whatever school you want to go there because of what that thing can do for you, not because of like, the resume line that you went to that school.
Exactly. And that's something, I mean, Drew and I, we've talked about this a bunch because all three of us, again, very similar stories in that the three of us stayed in state for undergrad. We didn't immediately jump to the Princeton's. Fuck Princeton. Actually, just kidding. They have a great music program for PhD students. Shout outs. But so much value, and like what at least got us into those elite institutions wasn't another elite institution. It was these state schools, these scrappy schools who pump out a lot of really talented people who've got some great programs, who gave us the support that enabled us, the three of us, to succeed in both New York and LA. And it's something that weighed on my mind too, because getting in the minds of us looking at these places, like, why did we choose these grad schools? And so I was looking out into the field. It's like, who's doing great work? Who am I hearing about? Who's finding success? Maybe they're not the big names now. They're not the big names in the field yet, but they're on that path. And I'd be a little creeper. I'd read their resumes. I'd read their bios. And the common thread, almost all of them went to one of these big schools. I go to a summer festival. I meet students at these big schools. I see, I could hang. What's the difference? is they're in a better environment. They're in an environment that can like foster that next step and make it easier. But as we all know, there's zero guarantees. I just view it as a higher percentage shot, or it's like a Guitar Hero. It's the star power. I get a 2 times multiplier, but if you still miss the notes,
you don't get
lose.
the points.
You get booed. Yeah, you don't get any points.
Yeah.
I think it makes it a little easier, but what's crazy is trying to find this balance, and is it right for you? Is it right for everyone? Is it worth this cost? Like it's tough. I mean,
for sure.
Yeah. Like
what
that goes into that?
That was like my whole decision-making process, because I, at that point, oh man, it was like senior year in college. This would have been like 2014. And I applied to 3 schools because like I was never sold on the grad school thing. I knew that, when you think of like NYU Film School, the grad program is the one that Spike Lee teaches at, knowing that I wanted to go to film school, even in undergrad, I kind of like had different, like true film programs on my radar. And so I thought about it, and, my one option was like, I could get out of like college, buy like, a very expensive like camera package and kind of sell myself as like a working filmmaker in New York, which I have a lot of friends that are doing that and are doing fantastic, and then the other thing was like screw it, maybe let me take a shot at my MFA where I can put myself in that very valuable environment, and not like a valuable school, but in that invaluable environment where it's like, you have professionals who are workshopping and who are all there for a common purpose. And so that was appealing to me. And I learned the best in school, with structure. Like I'm a structure person. I can't, anyone who can do like the Quentin Tarantino, go to a cabin in the woods and just write your magnum opus thing, like power to you, that ain't me. So, I was weighing those pros and cons, and I applied to 3 schools because I thought, if I'm going to apply to film school, let me just apply to the best ones, because like, why not? What do I have to lose? So I applied to NYU, Tisch. I applied to USC. Both UCLA and AFI wanted me to take like the GRE, like a standardized test, so I didn't. And then Columbia was the third. And at the time I was working at MTV, and like again, wasn't sold either way. I had like a okay job, and I got rejected from NYU and USC in the same day. And I'm like, okay, great. You know what? Like Columbia's going to say no to. This is it. I'm going to start being the a New York City filmmaker guy. And then surprisingly, like a couple of days later, they said yes. And so now I had this big, like, it wasn't a matter of where do I go? It was just, do I go or not? And, like my kind of mantra all through college with my buddies who we made films and comedy with was like, do it live, like what,
do it live.
Yeah. Do it live. And that was our thing. And, we're just like, when else am I going to have this opportunity? Like, let me yes and this moment in my life and just see what happens. And, the part about, the article that I wasn't too happy with was maybe the assumption that I was naive in some way to the financial decision I was making. When it was more like, kind of like you said before, I was weighing the risk against the reward, and it changed my life for the better. So, I'm still waiting for, like, the paycheck hasn't come yet, but that doesn't mean that the skills I learned along the way equate to what my income is right now.
And another thing too, again, a very similar story. I applied, I looked out, I was like, I'm only going to apply to the big boys, to the big schools, because only those would probably be worth the financial risk. So not naive to it. Of course, I didn't really understand money, but not like, oh, this is just free and everything's going to be great. I don't have to work. But applied to Michigan, Yale, Juilliard, rejected from the other 2, get into Juilliard. And my life has changed for the better. I would not be in this call recording this had I not gone there. My life would be so much better. No, just kidding.
No, it probably would, man.
It'd be just so much. No, but the same story. I get into a Juilliard. I go into my composition teacher. I'm gonna go. I'm like, because I know there's no guarantee. There was no like deferment process.
Right.
There's no guarantee I'd ever get back in. Like this was a good year for it to have worked out for me. And my teacher was like, you're going, right? I'm like, yeah, my composition teacher. And he's like, okay, good, because one time, a couple years back, another very successful student undergrad gotten into USC's film scoring program. Hard to get into. It's essentially the only one like that has such a high success rate. Very expensive too. And he didn't go. And then the person's like, he sells shoes, like at a shoe store, like outside of town. And like, no knock, selling shoes, very noble business, and we need someone to sell the shoes by the seashore. His name is Shally. But I mean, that kind of struck me. I remember that moment because like we don't know how to weigh these, and while it's never a guarantee, that prestige certainly helps. The experiences and the people we meet, my number one thing. Well, yes, I wanted that prestige because then you're in that club.
Yeah.
Also, I chose Juilliard and probably used Columbia because I wanted to be surrounded by people my age who had a high chance of success. Right. I realized the value of that. And so, I mean, and then that's how I met Drew. So peak success.
They say like you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right?
Oh, and man.
Do you feel that? I mean, I think that's like a Jim Rohn quote, and like motivational speakers aside, you know, a lot of what they say, there are nuggets of wisdom in them, right? And I find that college affords you that opportunity to be with people to collaborate with. You said you had some friends do it live. You met them at Columbia?
So I met them at Rutgers.
Met them at Rutgers. Okay.
Yeah. So like my like go-to collaborators are, you know, my buddies, Chris Pacey, Dave Seaman, his brother Kevin Seaman, Chris's brother Tom, you know, like just our friends we met at like in college in the trenches of like staying up till 2 a.m. and making like stupid comedy sketches. You know, those are the guys that I'm still writing with today. And you know, that's sort of one circle that I have. And then also like all of my friends from Columbia were a lot of producing students and like who were, you know, we were kind of the same age, but you know, they're all out in LA, like taking over, you know, like 2 are like studio executives. One's like they're in development and they're producing stuff. So it's the people that you spend time with is where the worth or the value of the degree comes from. The piece of paper is bullshit. You know, like the piece of paper means nothing. It doesn't, it lets me teach in college if I want to, but the time that I spent working towards that piece of paper, that's the value, you know? And, you know, like when I'm at, cause especially in Los Angeles and like entertainment, no one cares. Like no one cares about your degree. Right. But what they do care about is the work that you produce. And, you know, I spent 2 years and change out in LA, like, and then I'm back in New Jersey now because of the pandemic. But, you know, the thing that I always found that like all of my peers who I was meeting who didn't go to film school, I'm not trying to say that like they were not good writers, because I met a lot of really good, like talented artists out there. But it's like, I felt confident in the training that I received to know that I can hang as opposed to like, you know, if I didn't go to school, I wouldn't have written 3 features, 4 TV pilots, 5 short films before even like taking my first step into the industry. Yeah. And like, it's all about the people you meet along the way, you know?